Pues nada, agradecerles a todos que estén tan juiciosos acá presentes como voluntarios. Esta es una labor que hacemos por amor al arte y no hay nada más bonito que ver pues que tenga frutos viendo que se unen y que participan y que están. Eh, digamos que dos cosas a nivel de lo que va a ser la charla. Juliet entiende ciertas cosas en español pero no habla fluido el español. Así que yo voy a ser la persona que va a estar traduciendo en caso tal de que ustedes quieran las preguntas que puedan tener durante la charla. Ella tiene separados unos espacios de igual forma para, para obviamente tener sus preguntas y demás. Pero en caso de que lo vean necesario, acá estoy. Y a partir de este momento voy a pasar a inglés, obviamente para darle la palabra a Juliet y para que podamos dar inicio. So I will translate this in English again. In case you have any question and don't feel comfortable to do it in English, you can put it on Spanish in the chat and I will translate it to you later. Okay, so um, I'm more than happy to have you, Juliet. You can turn on your camera if you want. Um, Thank you so much for having us and for have this time with this community of Latin people and loves of the US, right? So this public is yours. I will be here just supporting chat and doing some questions in case that is needed. Okay, so go ahead, Juliet. This is for you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Just verify my cameras. No, it's all working. Okay, perfect. So if you'd like, I'm going to start sharing my screen and I'm going to share the right one. And all right, let's go. Can you all see what's on the screen? Is it working? All right, perfect. So welcome to the online event Chinese UX 101, understanding how and why Chinese UX looks the way it looks and works the way it works. And as our organizer said, this event is organized for the Interaction Design Foundation Colombia, more specifically Medellin, and the UX Lab of ICSE. So thank you very much for having me. And hi again. I'm Juliet. I'm an expert in cross-cultural user research, as well as UX design and research in general. I specialize in the European, especially the French and the Chinese cultural areas in terms of their culture, design, and also markets. That also means that I'm not a specialist on the Latin American zones. This is why I'm very happy to be here today and be with you all to get to know you a little bit better and get to know your country a bit better. Okay, so without any delay, let's start. So today we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to see how context informs understanding, and we'll see about your first impression of Chinese design if that's not something you've already seen before. Then we'll do a crash course on the context surrounding China in 2025, which is necessary to understand why Chinese design looks the way it looks. First, we're going to start from a country scale and then to a UX and to a screen-by-screen perspective. So pantalla by pantalla, right? And finally, we'll discuss the reason why it's more important than ever for you to pay attention to what's happening in China. I know you're in Colombia. I know it feels very far, very exotic. Oh, she's in Asia. But because the 21st century might as well be the Chinese century, I want to give you the tools to navigate it, just in case you'll have to, do anything concerning China. Okay? So, todos bien? All right, let's go. So let's start with our first impressions. Every time you see a design from an unfamiliar place, consider it an opportunity to see the world with new eyes. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to have you all, we're going to do a little icebreaker. So I'm going to show you a screen and I want you to kind of tell me what do you think this is for? What do you feel when you see it? And as a designer, what do you think of it? And I want your honest opinions. I'd like you to write in the chat and you'll have 2 minutes for that. Paola, can you translate it real fast? Sorry. Thank you.
Of course. Ahorita lo que quiere hacer Juliet es un ice breaking para romper el hielo Básicamente quiere mostrarles algunas imágenes y quieren su más honesta opinión. Así que nos va a empezar a mostrar ciertas imágenes y lo pueden compartir en el chat para que se lo podamos leer. Go ahead, Yolette.
Okay, ready? Go.
Recuerden que los estamos leyendo tanto Néstor como yo, así que no sean tímidos y cuéntenos qué opinan. Ok, Daniel de las dice an e-commerce. Feels a
Okay,
bit crowded, to be honest.
okay,
Um, app for activities, dice Laura. Liliana says, this feels a lot like those WeChat mini programs where there's a lot of information like marketplace, very content heavy.
okay, okay.
Nestor says is complex icons.
Mm-hmm. Okay, still giving you 30 seconds. Anyone who hasn't shared yet?
No yet.
All right, last chance.
Everything is screaming at me. It says white. And Danny asks, is a woman up?
The woman? What?
Yeah, it's asking if is it a woman up. Someone else
Uh,
says, Melissa says, many options.
okay, okay, let's stop here. And you have got very interesting answers. They are all very good, and I especially like the one who said that this looks a lot like a mini program on WeChat, and we'll talk about this later. And someone said, yeah, it looks like it's for buying something. I'm going to give you the solution. So this is
Before you
Meituan.
do
It's
that,
an
apologize.
Yeah.
I will read the last two comments that is came
Okay, sure,
from
sure, sure.
Alicia. She said that it's a social app like TikTok. It can be explained and be surprising. And also Camila says it reminds me to Alibaba.
Yeah, yeah, it does. They kind of all look like lights, right? But the core feature of this app is actually to order food, and you will not be able to see it like the way it looks right now. This is basically Chinese Ubers, but you are all right that this app also does a lot of other things. There's a bit of social media, as you can see. There's an option to write posts that's like in bright orange at the bottom. But that is like not the core feature of this application, and that's a bit hard to believe. It does a lot of other things, so this makes it a super app, and we'll talk a little bit about it later. So let's do the next one. Same thing here, 2 minutes or 1 minute and a half. One, two, three, ready? Go. This one shouldn't be too hard if you already.
Okay. Danny says social app.
Okay.
I think that I always see this on TikTok by selling stuffs. Juan
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian says like TikTok. Maria says something like TikTok. Alfonso Gudelo says social life like TikTok. Christopher Ortega says and live interface. Yeah,
All
for
right,
me,
any
it's
more
something for
answers?
sale.
Okay, more
Liliana
answers.
says it feels like when they integrate all kind of content, live sales, webinars, and every random promotions with influencers. Ubaid said e-commerce live. Alicia says selling orange. Curious. I believe it's great way to selling things quickly. Monica Valencia says maybe for live shopping.
Right, I'm gonna stop here because you got it right. This is Douyin As in, this is TikTok, but this is the original TikTok, the Chinese TikTok, if you want to. And the core feature would be short videos. There's two more answers if you want to read them, Paula.
Yeah, it says she definitely doesn't sell apples, and is fluffing, and that's Paula Atienza. And Melissa said red one, red not, sorry,
Okay.
in a question mark. So she's
Yeah.
asking about.
So yeah, Red Note. We'll talk a little about Red Note later. So this we've got the Wing Shop, which is TikTok, like TikTok shop, but in China. So it's going to have a lot more features because it's kind of like the original version. And this is what happens when a social media app decides to get into e-commerce. And this type of idea, I think, would not be able to have come from like a Western business, because Chinese business operates a bit differently. Again, we're going back to the idea of the super app. And as you just experienced Chinese design, maybe some of you had it for like the first time. Some of you already know this, and I know somebody who mentioned WeChat mini programs, and you're right. Chinese design may often feel like a little bit too much. It evokes very strong reaction in foreign users, and oftentimes I heard about it being confusing, maybe overwhelming. It's crowded. Some people find it bearable, but it takes time to get used to. So it's often too much, just too much. It's demasiado. This is how you would say it. And that's because we have cultural differences in aesthetics, preference, and even perceptions of the world. As in, when images get into our brain, some people just process image and the surrounding differently, and that can be true for an entire culture. And what's interesting here is that users in mainland China, as in here, they don't think it's too much. For them, that's about just right enough, which shows that good UX is not necessarily universal. It depends on who you are going to design for. I mean, you know this already, but here the difference is jarring. And if you want to understand why, and if you understand why, you'll be better at communicating with your stakeholders. So that's one of the goals of this speech. And that's why it's important that we understand the why of the what. Why is the design done in a certain way and not in another way? And for this, we need to understand the context. Now, what do I mean by the context? Now, when I say context, I'm not talking about specific design choices. If you're thinking about design choices, you're thinking of Figma, you're thinking of components, you're already too far in the process. So let's roll back a little bit. And okay, sure, you can collect elements, right? You can collect your screenshots. This is what I do too. I take a lot of screenshots for material. I encourage you to. You can make your own mood board, and use it as a basis for your work, right? But even if you do this and you don't understand a culture, you would not know why it looks and works that way. So imagine a non-UX designer taking screenshots of, let's say, any interface screen, but even if they take screenshots, they would need to learn a little bit of UX design to explain why certain things are done a certain way, which is the same thing here, from a cultural perspective. And when you're facing with a very different culture that you don't understand, what we do normally is that we're going to fill things with our brain. Like humans, when we don't understand something, we're going to fill the gap. And what happens is that we might misinterpret or make judgment on something that we don't really understand, right? And why not learn a little bit of cross-cultural communication, right, to avoid that? Why am I talking about this? So what's cross-cultural communication or management? That's the discipline and practice of adapting to different cultures to make them work together and to overcome cultural gap, avoid costly mistakes, and achieve common goals. For instance, I'm going to use my cross-cultural communication skills to navigate like a company merger, because companies have different cultures, even if they're from the same country. Like when I negotiate with a foreign client or even a client from another industry, when I expand my business to another region, and in design, cross-cultural skills help you understand designs from other perspectives, as well as help you adapt to a multicultural environment, right? But like UX design, so remember that it's a specialized skill set. So invest if you think that it's necessary for you, right? And even if you learn about it, you'll still need to do some research on the target's context, the target culture context. And this is why I always explicitly say which regions I am specialized in, right? Because I don't understand every regions of the world, even if I want to. Because cultures are complex realities, they're human realities. Most of the time, we only see what's superficial and we're only scratching the surface. When you saw the screenshots, you're scratching the surface of a very complex reality. And if you do not understand what it is, you're going to be stuck at first impressions, at your first, your gut feelings. And that's true for me too, all right? That's true for me too. Say if I need to design for Colombia, my current knowledge is definitely not enough, so I'll have to do research, right? Now that you understand that context is key, you understand that you know why Chinese design looks the way it looks. You have to have a basic understanding of China. I'm sorry, that's unavoidable. And it is very relevant to Latin America right now, more than ever. And this understanding makes design possible, right? So context is it could be things like a country's culture, but it's also things like a team's budget. It could be the individual designer's own artistic style. It's the people you design for. It's your stakeholders. It's global economics. It's GRPD regulations in your country. And it's a 1,000 years old writing system people used to write. For us, that'd be characters. And for you, that would be the Latin alphabet. It's the broad understanding of everything that surrounds and affects design. Oof. All right. Any questions so far?
Actually, in the chat, we were talking about super apps in Latin America. And I can say that, for example, Cesar from Mexico say BAS, the uh, Aztecas Bank, and Liliana mentioned Rappi. So something that I want that maybe you go deeper is how how many features you can see in a super app. Because, for example, Rappi, I will mention this because it's the closer example that I know, have food, have also delivery, and now has a bank and some money to provide to you. But they start just for delivery. So I heard that you mentioned that, yeah, it is also for food, for driving, but what else you can get from a super app, for example?
That's actually going to depend on the super app starting, like the starting core feature. Now, I know I mentioned that, yeah, super apps designers, they don't care for like what core feature it is, but they do kind of care a bit because their core feature, kind of reflects what they are able of. So a company's like what they're able of reaching in the next step. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it later. And I kind of want to show you why super apps rise in China first. So let's start first with kind of the why of Chinese UX. And let's talk about China's unique position in 2025, kind of summed up. And three things distinguishes China from other countries at the moment. It's the economic of scale, it's the speed at which features are delivered, and the stance it takes when it comes to technology. Now, it's going to be very fast. So hold on. If you have questions, I'll answer them at the end of this part. All right, let's go. So we're going to start at the beginning on a country level. We're going to start on a policy level. So China, as you know, has a very strong government. And the government, we've got a government that oversees and sets the direction of the country's development very closely, a lot more than in liberal economies. And we would call this a socialist market economy. So they've edict development plans such as Made in China 2025, which is moving away from low quality manufactured goods to a higher quality set of goods while while still making those low quality goods so that we have a strong manufacturer all around. It also do things like heavily regulates the stock market and has been involved in keeping critical industries nationalized. So 91 of the 500 biggest companies are state-owned or partially state-owned. And when it comes to the internet, all phone providers are state-owned too, because telecommunication is a crucial part of infrastructure. Now, one of the biggest enterprise in the last 20 years was to connect the entire country, both physically by paving and building roads and investing in transports, but also digitally. So right now there are 5.44 million kilometers of road all across China, and our 5G coverage is 95% for mobile. And all of this with the economic stimulus that's provided, 50 years of steady growth, and a strong emphasis on productive economy, rather than asset economy, has made China now a leader in both baseline production and high technology. We're now the world leader in 57 out of 64 critical technologies such as aircraft engines, undersea wireless communication, and even radar technology, which I didn't know was still being developed, honestly. We also have at least 10 world-class tech hub cities, for instance, Beijing and Shenzhen. And this is where the UX jobs are, and things are being done and things are being made. So pay attention to those cities if you ever want to work in China. I don't know. Now, all of this creates an ambience of optimism, which is pretty unique, of techno optimism, more precisely, and patriotism as well as pride. This also creates another trend among consumers of China chic, where consumers now turn away gradually from foreign brands in favor of domestic brands. No, the two are connected, and that's mostly true among the youth of China right now. For instance, more people buy Huawei right now instead of Apple, and Apple has lost its leading position in the mobile market that has held for years and years now. And all of this creates a unique, divergent ecosystem that can rival Silicon Valley. And at the moment, I'd argue that this is the only one in the world that can rival the actual Silicon Valley. And first of all, how did it appear? How did this appear? It's true that I'm going to have to talk about the Great Firewall also, because I kind of have to. I'm talking about Chinese internet. So it is true that we don't have access in mainland China to a lot of what's called the global internet. And the firewall of China is a mechanism that kind of blocks access to most of the foreign websites and apps. That's 3,000, I don't know, 300,000 websites, and a lot of the big technology stacks like Google and Meta. So if you try to go on YouTube in China, actually it's not going to load, right? It's not going to load. Now, there are reasons why China has done this. That people in the West call it censorship. The government here says that those companies could not get into China because they don't respect Chinese data regulation. And okay, I don't really care for the reasons, because that's being argued back and forth for a very long time. So no matter the reasons, there are a few consequences of this. And the first consequence is that this allows for a uniquely Chinese UX design to form, with a lot less influence from the West, like from America, right? And the second consequence is that Chinese companies and entrepreneurs started to fill the gap when these technology stocks were blocked from China. So in the 2010s, we started to have substitutes for existing services like Bilibili for YouTube, like Baidu for Google, or WeChat for WhatsApp. From the isolation of the firewall came out what we call the domestic Chinese tech ecosystem. And it's quite different from the international ecosystem, but I don't know how different it is from the Latin ecosystem. So you'll tell me if I'm wrong. First of all, it's a mobile first ecosystem, meaning that most people access internet on their phone through mobile applications, not even on browsers or websites, like in European countries, for instance, which I know are very website first. Even the career of a web designer is kind of questionable here in China. So if you want to choose a career, it's better to be like an app developer. And we're also more AI friendly because of, that optimism I mentioned, and trust in the government. And the two are correlated because most people trust the government with their personal data. And with all of this big fact, like a few big actors appear. So I mentioned those substitutes services like Bilibili and WeChat, right? And after 20 years of technological coordination, we got some pretty big hitters here. We have our equivalent of the FANG, which are the BATX, the Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Xiaomi. And that's not mentioning all of the other big technology companies we have, such as Huawei, Vivo, ByteDance, that are not even part of the big four. And all of the tech adjacent companies profit from it, like gaming companies or electric vehicles, which we're talking a lot about right now. And this combination of divergent evolution with a different stance on tech and consolidated tech enterprise all makes up our unique ecosystem. But there's one last ingredient that's going to take this to the next level. And that is the population, the market, and by that I mean the speed and the scale. First of all, let's talk about demographics. Let's talk about scale. Now, I'm not kidding when I say that the Chinese market is at the moment the world's largest market. We've got 1.4 billion people, And out of them, 1.1 billion have stable internet access. So remember that 95% coverage rate, mobile first, etc. That's what it's for. And half of all of China kind of counts as middle class, which means a lot of spending power. And this is kind of driving this trend of growing, the country's growing wealth has been from its internal market. All that energy of industry, of manufacture are going towards internal demand rather than external demand. Now we still export a lot of stuff, right? And tech is the industry that supports all of that growth and supports all of that logistically and makes it possible. And speaking of tech, it's very competitive in China. So we have a market where the first taker wins, even more so than in other countries. Because as soon as there's an idea on the market, everyone's going to copy you. It's not due a lack of creativity, but because it's so profitable, right? And the ones who ship first will likely stay ahead for a very long time. And the second thing is that we have overall a lower cost of labor, which means that the same company can hire more staff, which means that from the population to this to the cheap cost of labor, we got everything that's going to help us scale. And this creates an environment where shipping out first is more important than creating the perfect UX, right? Now we know that good experience is important, but launching a product or a feature overtakes that. And people in tech who are working in tech are anxious if they're one step behind competitors. This creates very short development cycles and a lot of wasted work and rollbacks, but companies and the state can afford the cost of failure. I'm going to give you one example. So, you know that Red Note got very popular as of lately because of this whole debacle with TikTok, sorry, in the United States. Guess how much time it took for the Red Note team to come up with the English version of Red Note? It took them 2 weeks, 14 days for the English version of Red Note. So that's how fast we are here in China when it comes to shipping features. That's the main difference between tech here and tech elsewhere. Aside from that, many challenges of tech work are very similar. So scale, speed, and the ability to manufacture both hardware and software, as well as incentives to grow. All of this makes China a very unique ecosystem compared to the rest of the world. And now you kind of understand the context a bit better. And we are going to move on to design finally. But before that, can I answer some questions?
Okay, just give a couple of minutes for
Sure, sure.
the chat to start to make it. It's actually very interesting how all the ecosystem in China is working. 14 days for a translation. Now with the I think that it get reduced for a day or something like that, no?
Oh, mm. I don't know. Even if AI translates it, it's not going to look fine. Because the apps are so dense and Latin alphabet is so long, they're so long, they take up a lot more space. So adjustments and word choices have to be chosen precisely.
Okay, someone raise her hand. Liliana, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Juliet.
Hola.
Hi, hola. As AI speeds up, like how products are built and shaped, is there a Chinese company besides the one that you mentioned before you see leading the way in UX adaptation for global markets? Is there like a remarkable example that you maybe want to share with us? I think it's really interesting.
I think that I'm gonna share with you what I've heard from Alibaba for AI in the global market. Yeah, Alibaba, more like AliExpress because AliExpress is the international branch of Alibaba. And so they have this translation or AI system that allows them to translate a lot of the content because they can translate in every language, right? They ship in a lot of countries. So I think that they are using AI right now to translate a lot of the content automatically from one language to another. And that's user generated content. They are in control of their own system content. But if you're like a user at AliExpress, you're selling something, so you're going to write like a description, right? You're going to write your product description, and they might be using AI to make it a little bit better because like the default automatic translation isn't great. So they're trying to inject some style into it. But that's what I've heard. So you'll have to ask them directly.
All right, I have a question from Juan Sebastian Leon, and it says like this. I'm an anthropologist and I'm excited to know that concepts like cross-cultural communication are necessary in UX. So my question is, if you think that these barriers can be minimized with, and if this can lead to a better cultural understanding for UX design. If so, how you envision this being implemented?
Oh, well, first of all, I envision that the field of cross-cultural communication is going to get simplified when it's going to meet UX and getting applied to a very specific subset, right, of UX, because the crossover between these two is not as, I mean, it's large, but it's only as large as you're going to make it. Um, I definitely think that a little bit of cross-cultural communication, is useful for any UX designers. And even if you're designing for like one country or one national culture, we also have to take into account the differences between regions. So some regions they're going to have very different cultures, right? So within a country or even for your specific audience. And that too is going to need, I mean, not need, but you're going to benefit if you understand cross-cultural communication. And this is going to help you close up like the larger like international culture gap, but it's also going to help you close up a little bit of the smaller regional or subculture gap. I hope I answered your question right.
All right, we have another one from Alonso Agudelo. Maybe getting a bit of ahead, but is the super app look and feel kind of a desert look for Chinese digital products, like visual chic?
Okay.
That's
Sorry?
that's the test. That's the question. I think like I will repeat it. So, um,
Yes, thank you.
is the super apps look and feel kind of a desert look for Chinese digital products, like visual chic? He's trying to embrace the super app look and feel, and if I understand correctly, right? If not, please correct me, Alfonso. It feels like too much in a place for a super app. So, okay, he's saying like everyone wants to look like that kind of app. So the question is Chinese applications look everyone the same or have difference? If so, which are the difference to catch the eye?
Like apps that look different from super apps. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's super interesting because right now super app is like a trend. And so we have a lot of applications that want to look and feel like a super app, but they don't really have the tools for this. And this is not what I'm going to talk about in this speech, but I'll make a note for next time when I'll have to do this presentation again. Though there is this trend of trying to look and feel like a super app. And a lot of them do look a little similar. You know, you have this icon, like this menu icon at the top. It's very dense. But overall, I think that the Chinese design might start to kind of get away from this now. But at the end of the day, users now are kind of used to this type of design. And how do I say this? It's like a mental model. It's the same thing when you use an application or like a tool in the West, you're going to expect, not in the West, but in the world, you're going to expect like the save icon to kind of look like a floppy disk. You're going to expect certain things to look that way. So now we already have expectations here. And I think that the future design will not, I mean, in the near future, it's not going to deviate a lot from that initial design. I hope this answers your question.
Me too. So I don't have we don't have any other questions so far, so I think you can continue.
Okay, that's great because we're finally going to get into design. This will be a quick summary of some of the more interesting aspects I found. I don't have everything here. So what's more important is that I want us to kind of re-examine the screens we saw and as well as a few new ones and put this into context with everything that we've just talked about. So in China, with all of this kind of closed ecosystem, there arises a distinct design sensibility here in tech and tech adjacent spaces, like for cars and video game. Now, first of all, as you saw, its contents are densely packed, right? What's easy to parse for Chinese people and Chinese users can be it can be a lot for foreigners. So first of all, Chinese characters, as in Chinese writing, is a lot denser. And in the same text in English, if I give you an example, if you translate it like a paragraph from English to Chinese, it's going to shrink by 30%. And I imagine for languages with longer words, like for French or German, it's going to shrink even more. And there's another cultural phenomenon is that in China, more words feels more important and trustworthy. So there's a preference for maximalism in certain type of speech context. It's going to show up in content. So content can feel like very flowery if you just translate it back and forth. It's going to feel like just a lot of useless word. But that's because there's already like a cultural precedent for this preference. And another thing you might have noticed is that graphic choices are different too. So Chinese UX and UI, usually we use a lot of brighter and more saturated colors. There's also a lot of red because red is it's a color of happiness and everything good, and this is why you will see a lot of red. And in terms of content, images and videos, and especially shorts, are most likely to capture the user's attention more so than in other regions of the world. And for a fun fact that you can read on the slide, 93% of all internet users regularly watch shorts. So that's 93% out of that 1.1 billion people. And half of them, like almost 60% have made a purchase because of the shorts, right? Do you know what this means? This is crazy. It means that the conventional marketing funnel doesn't even work here. Like discovery happens most of the time through short videos, not through websites or ads or even sponsorships. We just skip the ads like everywhere else. And there's another notable difference we talked about a little earlier is the strong push for AI integration. And AI integration is one of the main direction Chinese tech is developing for right now. We talk about DeepSeek, and DeepSeek has boosted consumer confidence in AI, and now the people in China are sure that their data stays in China. And AI isn't also limited to technology, and this is what I mean by stronger integration. I'm going to give you the example of Ping An technology. So Ping An Insurance now Ping An China is a big insurance company in China, and they've got this subsidiary called Ping An Technology, right? And they're using a database that's bigger than Alibaba's to train an AI model, right? What does it do with it? So it can do things like getting your insurance papers done before you call your insurance in the case of an accident, right? Which completely reverses how the flow of the service. And again, AI at the moment is in development. It's being developed in its usage. So I would not call it established exactly, but it is exciting development. So yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm for around the potentials of AI here. Now, with all that in mind, we're gonna look
Um,
at those designs. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt you for a question that is making by Maria Paz, and
Mhm.
she's saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I seen that maximalist applies also to physical space or architecture in China.
Maxima. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, kind of physical architecture. Well, that's going to depend if you're talking about well, like what kind of architecture, what kind of artwork you're talking about. But I have a lot of pictures I can share with you if you want to. I think that'll come maybe after. I'm sorry, maybe after the what is it? After the speech.
Perfect, thank you.
So with all that in mind, it's time to kind of look at the design again through a new eye. I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds to take a look at this. You don't need to write anything in chat, just think in your head now with all that context. Okay, so did you notice anything? Did you notice that it's denser on the Chinese equivalent of YouTube? How brighter the colors are. So we have this bright pink instead of, the more like the red, normal red of YouTube. And And if you can read Chinese, you'll see that Bilibili really wants me to download their app rather than being on their web browser. So I'm on my phone, but I am on my browser, right? But they really, really want me to download their app instead of letting me just use their browser version, which works perfectly fine. And again, that's because China is a mobile first country, and there are going to be a lot more, the apps are more complete than the web browser counterparts. And here, apps are being developed before their web counterparts now. It was not the case before, but now it's being reversed. App first, browser after. And let's give you another example. So this is in the banking sector. So Société Générale. So that's French, but I'll put it in the category of like minimalist Western design versus China's postal bank. And 1, 2, 3. All right, there again, I think that you're becoming expert by this point. You have noticed how different the home pages are. So if you've noticed, yeah, both of these are now on my mobile app, and both of these are on the home page. You'll see the presence of a search bar on the Chinese app, which happens a lot with Chinese applications. And you can also see how information architecture shows different priorities. I think you can read a little bit of the French because it's a Latin language. So for the Chinese one, for the French app, they assume that you're already on your app to manage your own bank account. But on the Chinese one, the homepage promotes a variety of services and financial products. And you'll need to tap on the button My Accounts, which is the little person thing, like the green person thing on the left at the top, to see your own information. So very different priorities here, depending on the bank and depending on the country, right? Okay, so here are some instances of digital physical integrations I've lived here. So one for pay for parking. So what happens in China is that when I pay to leave a parking lot, I'm going to scan the QR code and then I'm going to enter my license plate. I then pay on my phone. And when I get to the barrier is going to open for me because it would have scanned my license plate. For one, or even another one in Douyin, in TikTok shop, where I can scan my environment and the app is going to detect what the object is and direct me to the product page for the object. Here it's going to direct me to a selection of glasses, right? I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, does TikTok have this this feature? If it does, it's probably from China. Sorry, I'm gonna have to move on. I think we're going to be short on time. So all of this culminates in a uniquely Chinese product, and I'm finally going to talk about it, which are super apps. So for those who don't know, what are super apps? Now, some of you already know that. I feel that half of you here already know that, and this is great. So super apps are apps that can do everything and anything. So unlike Western apps, which focuses on core features, so maybe 1 or 2 core features, Chinese companies don't really care, and they continue to expand into more features if they are able to, if they have the capacity to. And WeChat is the world's first super app, and this is what sets the standards for all of the super apps, right? Got this other example of Douyin, which is also TikTok, which started as an app to share shorts. It is now the 3rd largest e-commerce platform, even in China, right? Because it uses the capacity of its algorithm that pushes shorts to now push products, and its video hosting feature to now host streams, which means that you have millions of people that are watching long form ads willingly. So can you imagine how much money it takes traditionally to even make people want to watch ads, right? And part of that capabilities is geared toward what I said earlier, is that digital physical integration, right? Which has been increased due to the COVID pandemic's restrictions. So we can't touch anything. So we're going to integrate the physical and the digital so we can touch less thing. And mobile payment here has become the norm. And personally, I haven't paid with physical money since 2023. And that's not just like for me or in big cities like Shanghai. Like in most parts of China, you will not be seeing paper money or liquid money anymore. Another thing I just told you is that you can scan everything in China. You can, as you saw, just pay for the parking. You can use it to order food, to get information, to register for anything. And maybe with this development, augmented reality or now virtual reality, AR, VR might be the next big step, right, in this physical digital integration. And this has a lot of impact on daily life, an impact that cannot be underestimated. It changes the behavior of people. We got a higher rate of service digitization. So there's a huge market for business softwares, digitization, meaning that services can now be done digitally. And in the case of e-commerce, we've cut a lot of middlemen and directly connect businesses to their customers. And by business, I mean the factories, right, or the farm, right, where the things are being produced. And many, like me, we no longer go outside with our wallet, just our phones. I think that it's worth mentioning it because it's going to look very different if you come here as a tourist with your little wallet, right? Um, so now let's take a look again at what you've mentioned about WeChat mini programs. So WeChat mini programs
Sorry,
are,
sorry
yes,
to
sorry.
interrupt you. I want to make a question before you move on because
Oh,
this
sure.
is interesting. Here, like in not only in Latin America, but in all Western, something that is very it's catching our eyes is accessibility. So the question
Right.
is here, what about accessibility? Because it seems more elements are included in the same place, um, even if everything looks smaller.
Yeah, right. So accessibility, I haven't shown you because I actually don't have the time, but there are right now more and more apps that include an accessible version of the app. And when you click on the accessible version, it's going to change the look of your application, and everything is going to be larger and more salient, and it's going to kind of look like a Western app in essence. But I don't, I have screenshots, but I don't really have anything ready for my presentation. So if you want to stick around, I can show you a few of the screenshots of what I mean by accessible versions of the same app, if I find it in my portfolio, right?
Yeah,
If you can stick around with
that
that,
will be
great.
great. Also,
Awesome.
Marcela mentioned, and size is just one attribute between a lot of factors to take into account. So, for example, sizes in hierarchy and some other stuff. So it will be very interesting that you share that with us, if possible.
Um, do you mean in general for accessibility?
Now, for accessibility, just what
Okay,
you
great.
mentioned that you will show, like the accessible version of this application.
Right, that's great. Because I haven't really looked into it, so we're going to do like a like a live analysis of that. That's going to be great. Any other questions before I move on?
Nope, at the moment.
All right, thank you. Thank you for asking those questions. It's a very good reminder that we do need to have more accessible apps. So we're going to take a look at WeChat mini programs, which are kind of like apps inside apps, softwares inside the software. And mini programs are a big part of the versatility of WhatsApp. So inside my WeChat, I'm going to go on the page for mini programs. I'm sorry, it's a little bit small, but I hope you see it. And I'm going to click on this mini program, which is one for a bubble tea shop, right? And what's happening is that you are seeing that inside WeChat, you have entire functional applications, right? And this is an entire functional application. And you even have this menu bar at the bottom, this navigation bar. They are fully functional applications. I can check the menu, I can place my order, I can follow my order, and I can even follow their loyalty program if I'm a regular customer. So imagine thousands of different applications inside the application, and that's what mini programs are. They're far from mini, I imagine. And personally, I've used them to do a lot of stuff like pay for the bus and the metro. I can do that in Shanghai. I use it as like an English Chinese dictionary, and I've used it to access other existing apps while I stay on WeChat and a lot more things that's going to make people not want to use other apps. So they just stay on one app to increase engagement for that app. So here's another example, right? Douyin shop. And I'm going to come back to this again because I know the people you all know TikTok, right? And some of you, I don't know if you've already used TikTok shop, maybe some of you did. Um, Now this is very obvious for those who did, but I just want to give others a quick explanation. So here what's happening is that we're having a live cast, so a stream here, and we have the producer of the produce, so which is here we have a farmer directly advertising her produce to all consumers in China. So if I'm interested in those oranges, I'm going to click on the tiny little shopping cart button at the bottom, which is this one, the orange one. And after this, I'm going to say fill my shopping cart with a few selection. And then, here, yeah, advertising her products to all of China, and then I'm going to add to cart and shop. I'm going to pay with mobile, and once the payment is done, boom, I'm back on Douyin shop, which means that we have very strong like seamlessness between different applications, because the payment application here is obviously it's not Douyin shop, but it's going to bounce me back to my initial application, the one I've opened. This cuts a lot of middlemen, as I said, and this is how it makes sense in a super app context to expand like TikTok, like Douyin, the way it did by using its algorithm, because it has a strong point. It's an algorithm and video hosting. So what do? They create the third largest e-commerce platform in China. So, okay, at this point, Chinese design has kind of already breached containment. So it has jumped beyond the firewall and is now influencing the world. Now, in terms of innovation, you've seen it. We've got things like YouTube Shorts, Insta Shorts, and even LinkedIn Shorts that are taking inspiration from TikTok. You've got the super app trend, like the few ones you've mentioned, and I'm going to take references after. Things like Paytm in India. You also have this feature of screenshots to report issues. Sorry, I didn't find a screenshot of this, ironically, and scanning everything, etc. So most of these come from China. And interestingly, what interests me is the business. So businesses, when you come to China, you have to change your tactics and you have to go where users go. That's true. All businesses, be it domestic business or foreign business, have to go in super apps to catch their clients, right? Foreign businesses, if you're like used to a website first environment, you're going to have to adapt to mobile first, right, in the Chinese market. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So selling in China, it's a lot more complex than just translating existing content, because that might as well not work. You're going to translate your web page from like, I don't know, Spanish to Chinese, but nobody's going to come on your web page because people don't really use web browsers. Not a lot anymore. But designers here keep taking inspiration from the rest of the world too. From more to an equilibrium, right? So big social media apps are now cutting back on the amount of context on screen in favor of a more directed experience. We've seen with Douyin, but also the case of Red Note. If you've already used it, they are a bit more minimal. However, just remember that even after trimming all of the content, Chinese app will probably never be as minimalistic as, say, Western app. So we're already kind of seeing further in the evolution right now of Chinese design. And this presentation that I'm giving you right now might be completely obsolete, maybe in just 5 years. And that's how fast we do things here. Okay, so our last one. And after this, I'm going to be the last part. I promise you, we're already going over time. There's the last design I want to show you. I'm going to show you a few tourism apps, right? We got a Western design and a Chinese design. Booking is Western, Ctrip is Chinese. Right? So Western design, you understand it, very minimalistic, to the point. You got everything you need here, and things are pretty large and easy to see. The Chinese app, it's very rich and it's very colorful. You've got a lot of options and a lot of ads at the bottom, but that's just how it is. And the ads are kind of like packages pre-made for you. And we're going to have an hybrid, trip.com, which is owned by a Chinese company, by Ctrip, right? But it's designed for a global audience. Take a look at it. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. All right. Okay, so what you saw, it's a love child between Chinese design and like Western design. Maybe you've seen the elements of Chinese design, which is like the icon menu at the top with then the little airplane and the train, the presence of a search bar, you got the AI assistant at the bottom right, and all of these advertisements, all of those ads. But it's also meant to be accepted by a global audience, so it's not as dense as a real Chinese app. There are less items in the menus. The images are a lot larger. And the color scheme is a bit more consistent. So we're sticking kind of to this deep blue instead of kind of going everywhere like we're doing on the Chinese apps. And before we move to the next part, I saw a question. Paola?
No, actually, it
Okay.
was a mention that it was very interesting what you show us in screens, but no
Thank you.
questions so far.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. We're almost done. Whew, we're done. But what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you? The 21st century is kind of shaping out to be the Chinese century right now. As a Colombia-based professional, I would like you, that's your homework, to think about your trajectory and that of your region in the near future. Because yes, without a doubt, the 2020s is shaping up to be a decade for Sino-Colombian partnership. Now, traditionally, when it comes to Latin America, Brazil is the market Chinese businesses are more interested in. And some Chinese tech companies like Didi have been in Brazil since like the 2010s, right? So they've been here for more than a decade. And we are also partners in the context of the BRICS nation. But right now, China is looking at the Latin American market more broadly. Between 2021 and 2022, investment in Colombia has tripled. That's a lot. We know that the ministries of communications in both countries express alignment and convergence of interest, so you can expect a lot more tech-related collaborations in the future for you. And also, not a small, also a significant also, in 2024, Colombia joins the Belt and Road Initiative, la Iniciativa Franja y Ruta. And the Belt and Road Initiative, if you don't know, is a global initiative meant to connect the world with kind of like infrastructure, both as a mean and as a tool of international negotiation and trade, and as a leverage for Chinese diplomacy abroad. And it's not really a coincidence that it's all happening right now, because the United States' position as a main business partner for Latin America is kind of shaky right now, especially like right now. Diversifying partners is always a good strategy for any country. And despite some regions' difficulties in Latin America broadly, now we all know of Argentina's economic misadventures. We've heard about it in Asia, and we feel very bad for our Argentinian peers. But Latin America broadly, you're a steadily growing region, and that's Colombia included. And now you might be wondering, will I end up working for a Chinese client or company? Now, if you do, it's unlikely that you'll be asked to design for Chinese users, right? And it's more likely that you will be part of localization efforts for the Colombian and the Spanish speaking market as a whole. And this is where your talents will be best put to use if I were to hire you for anything. But if you do end up having to work with Chinese partners, don't be afraid, right? Well, I have to learn Chinese and the ins and outs of how things work in China. Okay, so we know that there are some important cultural differences in how business is done here. But again, if you're not going to work in China, it's very unlikely that we'll ask you to navigate the world of Guanxi. But that depends on the company, right? Some companies, Chinese companies that go abroad, they're really they're dead set on doing things the Chinese way. And some companies are they're a bit more manual. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to adapt a bit more. But that's true for every companies when they go abroad. But of course, if you go to China, yes, I would suggest learning a bit of Chinese, just as a polite way of showing thank you for the host. And okay, we're done. Everything is summed up. I've talked today in a document. And there's going to be the link up, and I'm going to show it to you a little bit later. So we have everything here, just what I've talked about, plus a lot of other things to show you that indeed everything here is connected, right? Now we're at the end of the presentation. I would like you to tell me about Colombia if you have the time. Now, please tell me a little bit about your country, because I don't know much about Colombia. I know that it has cumbia. I know that you make killer food and you produce high quality jewelry. That's música cumbia. Okay, and you have very good coffee too, right? But I don't know how the digital market is in Colombia at all. So you talked about some of the super apps. I'm super interested in hearing about that. So you'll have to tell me more in the shared file, right? So please put the elements in the shared file if you have the time. That will help me a lot. Thank you.
Please
Muchas
share the
gracias.
link on the chat.
All right. Give
in
me
order
I'm gonna stop
everyone
sharing.
can. Yeah, please.
All
It's
right.
not possible for us.
Okay, sorry. Give me a little moment. I
Okay,
should have it
I
open
will
by the
start
side.
to
All
read
right.
a couple of comments while you are looking for the link. Okay. So
Okay, thank
Cesar
you.
Paternita say we need to think apps interconnecting services and try to solve problems in places, super apps. I will need to understand better the Chinese design in order to convince Chinese business partners. Cesar say, okay, graphic of architecture was amazing. Maria Paz says, this is really interesting, opening up and gaining knowledge of a different way to designing and reasoning behind it. And Marcela from our community also say, how would you explain why cognitive load does affect the Chinese experience? Maybe it's just cultural, but I would like to go deeper into where it came from.
Okay,
Yeah.
super interesting because people in Asia have kind of like a different way to process images. And there has been research that dates back long ago that Japanese, like just East Asians in general, we kind of look at the context first before they kind of go at the middle of an image. But I think you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to give you the references for that.
Yeah, definitely follow her. I actually get her into this chat because of LinkedIn. So she's always posting a very interesting contest and you will love it. Actually, someone from Spain and from Mexico came from your LinkedIn. So you have also a great community.
Oh, you're from Spain. I'm so sorry. It must be so late. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you that's why you have a great community. Um,
Oh, thank you.
Okay, in Chinese, they can be powerful, giving context before. Okay. So anyone participating in the link, let me know.
Sorry, I can make it like a very quick question for Juliet. I don't know if you have.
Sure, go ahead.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, Juliet, but I'm genuinely curious about your personal take. And is there a role or function within Chinese UX teams that you feel is often undervalued, but especially essential in today's, let's say, fast changing UX landscape? I'm really curious to know more about these Chinese UX teams and if maybe you feel like there is a role that it could be a little bit undervalued in that ecosystem.
By role, by what kind of role do you mean? What do you mean by undervalued? Do you have
Like
an
maybe
example?
a content designer or a localization team, like any roles that you feel like this in these Chinese UX teams that you feel sometimes can be undervalued.
Oh yeah, I think that you kind of have all of the okay, so one thing we don't really have are like I mean we have them, we call them like UX how do you call them, UX managers, but like all the operational, so like the design ops, the research ops, the content ops, that's kind of more like a rising role, right? Most of the time we just call them managers, but the approach is different too when you have like a design op, right? If you have a design op, you're here to facilitate the job of designers. But right now we I think, right, and if I'm wrong, but that's not we have what to call them seniors, and I don't know if they fill the role of design ops, but yeah, I feel that there are a lot of roles that can be better defined. We also have content designers that, as my friend from Alibaba said, Anna said, was they're still working towards creator recognition because in China, everybody's kind of writing the content, right? So sometimes the content designer doesn't always have a place in a company. And then we have researchers like me, US user researchers, where in China, it's a lot about using big data. So we have a lot of evaluative work. We have a lot of what is called it, like, oh yeah, user sentiment research to do, but at the expense of discoveries. Because people think that, oh yeah, we're going to ship fast, fast, fast. So yeah, that's the problem. When you're shipping a lot faster, a lot of the values of existing jobs are kind of put aside, like the analytical power of UX design to make a good experience before you ship it. Now, here, we're going to ship first and they're going to repair it if it breaks. And I hope it answers your question. Thank you. So hard.
Marcela just mentioned that I'm not sure if you mentioned it that you're living in China right now. So actually, you are connecting by yeah, but a platform that allows you to be on Zoom and on LinkedIn and all of these platforms that are not allowed by government.
Ooh. Try not to put me on fire, please. I don't want any trouble.
Of course, apologize. So are you
No,
looking
no,
at
no
your
problem. But yeah.
firma?
Sorry?
Are you looking at your Figma? I see a lot of people just trying to let
Oh,
you
wait, wait, wait,
know
wait,
more
wait.
about our country. I see Juan Sebastian there. I see some
Oh,
other
awesome.
people.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think that yeah, they're just playing with information, reading a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really appreciate because actually during the entire time we have almost all the people that join from the beginning. So this means that your subject and all the information that you are sharing so far has been very, very interesting. So just for don't take a lot of time of the of the team and the members here, let me know if you have any other question through the chat or just unmute and ask directly to Juliet um, in order we can just start to closing and moving forward.
Oh, right. I forgot I have to, there's a question go on first, but I have to show you the screenshots for accessibility versions.
Yeah,
So if
well,
you have
I
any
have
questions, please.
yes, I have
Yes,
another
yes.
question from Alicia. Say, in relation to software integration, using the example of WeChat, where mini programs from different developers coexist within one platform. What strategies are used to maintain a consistent user experience?
Examples, software to software, different
Yeah, well,
developers.
you super apps have a lot of different competitors inside there, right?
Right.
And you show us that everyone ends up in kind of the same process to be consistent in the user experience. What is the strategy for doing that?
Oh, I think that when it comes to super app, a lot of this interaction is kind of taken care of by the software itself of WeChat. Um, but to keep the consistent, maintain a consistent user experience. Different developers. I'm sorry, I don't really know how to answer this. I think I don't really understand your question very well. Different developers coexist one platform. Oh, you mean different developers existing within the WeChat environment? Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think so. So please show us what you have on your plate. Otherwise, I will not take longer or from your time, also for everyone's time. Um, Liliana say thanks so much for the organizers for such a great talk. Hopefully, we will see more insights guests like Juliet in the future. That's for sure. We are working hard for have people around the world that can bring us a lot of information as Juliet. You are very opening with us, and for me, it's kind of take my blind eyes and see a lot of things that we didn't expect because actually we see a lot of Westerns and US way to do the stops. Even it's very different from Europe. So that's great to know and also to have you. Cesar
Oh,
says
thank you.
also thanks a lot for everything. So yeah, I don't know if you have already the screenshots to show
I'm
us.
trying. I'm trying to find it. I know that you can do it. Can you just give me like a few more seconds? Oh God, I have so many screenshots. Where is
No
it?
worries. I will continue read any other member of the community that also want to
Yes,
share
thank you.
the opinion. Okay, Monica Valencia say thanks Juliet for everything you share. I got a last question, a quick last question. Would you mind sharing how common are in-app subscriptions in China?
In-app subscriptions, do you mean like for subscribed services? Or
Yeah, I think so.
or do you mean by the number of downloads?
No, I think how you subscribe to any application. If
Subscri
it's the same process that we just fill up with our, for example, for pay
Ah,
your lot in car, you use your
ah, okay.
Yeah, here, for example, we fill out with our email, for example, and then we are members. But I don't know if it's the same in China. I mean, for you in cases, kind of use your ID or something like that.
Oh yeah, this okay, so funny thing is that I have a content ready for this for like the next season. I just don't know when I'm going to publish it, but so spoiler ahead, but in China you subscribe to everything with your phone number.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah, and
cannot
that's why I
imagine it if
said
you
yeah.
get robbed. I mean, you lost everything.
Oh no. And another thing is that we have cameras everywhere, so it's super safe. You want to come to
Oh,
China, you can leave your stuff on the table. No one's going to take it. I cannot do that in France, for instance. I will never do this if I'm back in Paris. I would never leave my bag unattended on the table. But here you kind of can, because they're going to trace you back anyway if you try to steal anything. So try to be on the best behavior.
that's amazing.
And I'm really sorry, I just cannot for the life of me find the screenshots of the accessible versions of an app. I'm sorry.
Don't
But this
worry, if
will
you
be
can,
part of
if
contents.
no, don't
This
worry.
will
If
be
you
part of
want,
content.
you can share it with me. I can email the community, or even though if you post it on your LinkedIn, I will also share it on LinkedIn in cages. Um, Motion Soul say join from Malaysia. Thank you, Juliet, for the great sharing.
Awesome.
Thank you, Interaction Design Foundation Colombia for organizing. So, no, well, again, thank you so much, everyone, for join us to share this time with us. Thank you, Juliet, also for sharing all this knowledge. It was great and amazing to having you here. I hope that this can be repeat again, just for you to share a lot of content and knowledge with us. And well, everyone, thank you so much for this time. I hope to see you again in another live or chat session that we will have in the community. So I don't know if you want to say anything else, Juliet. Otherwise,
No, muchas gracias para tu tiempo. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with me either in the morning or in the late, late night for my friend here from Spain. I'm so sorry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's an honor. It's my first actual speech that I'm delivering in front of people, and I'm very glad that it's you guys. It's
I
so
mean,
nice. Thank you.
thank you, everyone. So yeah, I hope to see you again in another live session, and thank you all for being here. Bye bye.
Bye.